Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Vikings Postgame Live right here at U.S. Bank Stadium, presented by Mystic Lake. As we take a look at an empty U.S. Bank Stadium, exactly the way it looked throughout the game today. We all wondered what this was going to be like after weeks and weeks of speculation. I'm not quite sure. As we turn to Pete Bercich and Ben Leber, we expected to see this, a scoring outburst by the Green Bay Packers, an unrelenting scoring outburst by the Green Bay Packers, and the Vikings playing catch-up pretty much all day long. 43-34, the final for Green Bay on Aaron Rodgers. And Pete and Ben, let's just get your overall impressions. First of all, just what was it like, what you thought it might be, and what surprised you?
I think the offensive output surprised everybody. I expected the defense to be ahead of the offense at this stage of the game. You got to, give a hat tip to the Packers. They executed very, very well. They didn't make a lot of mistakes. It's when you look at the first 5 drives that our offense had, you had a touchdown, then you give up the safety, then you get a 3-and-out and a punt, which they get a field goal, so that's 5 points. Then you throw the interception, and then Green Bay turns around and scores a touchdown. So that's really what I would consider 12 points off of turnovers that the Packers had, and that was what got the time of possession so lopsided in the first half. And the Vikings defense didn't have the juice, didn't have anyone to make any big plays to get them back in the game in the second half.
Yeah, Ben Leber, as we look at the final stats here, at 41 minutes of possession time for Green Bay, only 18 for the Vikings. Green Bay ran 44 plays in the first half, the Vikings only 17.
Well, and this is one of those games where if you look at the stats, you're like, oh, it was a closer game than you think. But if you watch the game, it was far and above the Packers were in control for most of the game. And the time of possession will say that. I was disappointed on a lot of fronts. The fact that our defense, in which, yes, you've got some new pieces, but you still have a lot of salty vets on that defense. And you've got a great head coach and coordinator, and they just came out unprepared. They looked unprepared. They got pushed around. They were on their heels a lot. They couldn't and didn't make a lot of adjustments based on the offensive formations and the way they moved Devontae Adams around. And that, to me, was disappointing because they just couldn't get off the field and they couldn't figure it out.
Stay with me on this, Pete, because the Vikings did lead 7-3, and it's interesting that, maybe a little ironic, that one of the few great defensive plays the Vikings made ended up turning the game around for Green Bay, because Holton Hill knocked the ball down on a 4th and 1 on a pass from Aaron Rodgers. Vikings take over. They're celebrating on the sidelines. Next thing you know, Cousins is on his back. The Vikings have to punt the ball away, and the field was tipped from that point on for Green Bay.
No question about it. I mean, and that's the ebb and flow of a game early, and they just never capitalized on any of those things. And for Green Bay, they make a mistake. You don't get the first down. You back the Vikings up, and then the first thing that they do when it's first and 10 from your own 1-yard line, offenses go on hard counts, right? That's what we do. We jump offside. You know what I mean? And those are the little mistakes early. The first drive the Packers had, we had first time it was 3rd and less than 5. They hard count. We jump offside. So you start making these little mistakes early, and Green Bay capitalizes on each one. And the next thing you know, you look up and you're like, man, we've been playing our rear ends off, and we're down by 12, and no one stepped up. And I think to piggyback on what Ben was saying, that's when you need to have a veteran kind of raise his voice, a guy to step up, a guy to make a play, a guy to do something to energize the defense, because I just didn't see any energy out of that side of the football.
It really never was. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. We'll see what the Vikings did well today. Of course, Dalvin Cook signing the big contract over the weekend, and he scored the Vikings touchdown here, which gave him that 7-3 lead. And you thought, well, they're going to get a lot of Dalvin Cook all day long.
Absolutely.
This will work out pretty well for him.
Yeah, great job, Dakota Dozier, blocking out on the pull, and a great catch here by Rudolph. He goes down to give the Vikings time to get the field goal team on, and able to put 3 points up on the board. So it was nice to see them answer like that right before the end of the half.
Kirk Cousins, put up some stats later. Went to his favorite target, Adam Thielen. And listen, this is the big thing. You got to keep this kid healthy, because losing Stephon Diggs, it's going to take a while for everyone else to kind of play catch up, I think.
No question about that. Thielen gets behind Darnell Savage, and this is what we've done with Cook, either the cutback or keep it strong. And the blocking was good up front, and I think that there was a ton more yardage on the ground that could have been gained. The 2-point play, him grinding it out. I mean, we have tired legs on the Green Bay D-line.
Right.
He just never had a chance to do that. And, Aaron Jones is very, very good. And by this time you see, when your defensive linemen like on that last play, Jaleel Johnson's in the end zone. That's not a good sign. And both quarterbacks, I thought, throw very, very well deep. And Adam Thielen on that one, just, get behind Jair and a perfect throw. So, when, Kirk, when he had time and he's getting down the field, he's been very, very accurate.
Well, and that's the thing that again, it's frustrating because when he has time, when he's comfortable in the offense, the dude can throw. I mean, he can make some throws. Now, both of those touchdowns to Thielen, you had to put it in that spot, and he did it. Some of the positives that I saw, I thought in the first drive, he did a great job with his pocket presence, moving around, keeping his eyes down the field, picking up a first down, throwing the ball down the field. And then we saw early in the second half, he had 2 big runs picking up first downs just by himself. I know he talked about making more of those plays as the season goes along, and he really had to tell himself in the offseason, that's how I can make more plays for this offense. That's good, but there's still some times where he just needs to take over, recognize a blitz, get the offense out of a bad situation, and really take command.
Before we let you get out of here, Ben, too, I mean, as Mike Zimmer digs into this film for the week and gets ready for Indianapolis next week, and look at the young secondary, which was a given going in, but doesn't it come back to no pass rush, no pressure on Rodgers today, and going forward, where's that going to come from with Danielle Hunter out for the next couple of games?
Well, I think it's all about getting the defense more in rhythm and not being on their heels. I mean, Pete, I remember you and I having a conversation on the radio broadcast. It was right after an 8-yard comeback on first down. Yeah. And it was in the second half. And it just felt like their first down percentage was high as far as getting successful plays and putting themselves in second and third and manageable, which makes it hard for any defense, regardless if you've got experienced corners or not. And so they have to be better on first down. They have to penetrate more in the run game. They have to start getting some negative plays. They had 1 tackle for loss in the whole day.
Yeah.
1.
That's it.
That's it,
wow.
As a defense. And so they have to do a better job of just penetrating up front. And because we have a smaller lineup of defensive line up front, don't get in this game where you're going to body up these guys and just out-muscle them. That's not going to work. You got to out-athleticize them.
Yeah, and I think Rodgers might have picked himself up off the ground 1 time. Yeah. So he wasn't as if we even got him on the ground.
2 quarterback hits and 44 pass attempts.
Yeah. So that's not a great ratio.
I didn't hear what Aaron had to say after the game, but I would assume his comfort zone was heightened as well by the fact that this place was empty today. This has not been necessarily a nice place for him, a fun place for him to play. They did win here last year, but.
And I think from a game plan standpoint, what Green Bay did was very effective. They got to the edges. They quick handoffs are technically passes. To the wide receivers to get them outside and let the running backs run north and south, and not drop. They didn't run a ton of drop back passes until the second half. They didn't challenge our corners, so we had a lot of young corners deep until the second half. They wanted to run the ball and bootleg off of it and do some of those kinds of things and more of a rhythm type of an offense early, and we never did anything to disrupt it. And that's the part that's concerning to me. I mean, you come out here, you let them kind of do, quote unquote, their thing, but to their credit, they didn't make any mistakes. There weren't a lot of holding calls. There weren't a lot of offsides on the offensive side of the ball. So they executed very, very well for the first game out.
So, Ben, without any preseason games, and put yourself in the coach's shoes, not just Mike Zimmer, but the assistant coaches as well, as they turn the page here, where do you start working with some of these young players to kind of understand, okay, now they understand what game speed is like in the National Football League. I'm going on the road again, not really with any fans in Indianapolis, I don't think. But is there still enough that you feel like the personnel is here to kind of gradually get better?
Well, the personnel definitely is here. Now, again, some of those plays, especially in the second half, with our defensive backs, they weren't in terrible position.
No, there's just some great throws.
Just some outstanding throws. And I think to myself, if that wasn't Aaron Rodgers, that's a pass breakup. And all of a sudden now we're thinking about now that young corner's gaining some confidence, they did run into the perfect storm of playing an elite level quarterback with an elite level wide receiver with some play calling. To your point, Pete, that they made our outside corners not just think about the pass. They had to get off blocks and make plays on perimeter run game. Screens, little slip back screens, little bubble screens. All of that stuff plays into your mindset of man, I'm just trying to think about what kind of route is this guy to run, and now he's punching me in the chest, and I got to get off and make a play. So they did a really good job just mixing everything up. Going forward, you're going to get an opportunity to play against a quarterback that's going to throw you some balls. And so I really
Phillip
think Rivers. And you have to, in your best way, teach these guys all the mistakes that they made, but not grind them into a pulp where they don't have any confidence to go out next week and make a play.
Yeah.
There are going to be opportunities to make plays on the ball next week. If you've got the confidence to do it and you build these guys up through the course of the week, they'll make them.
So as this just in, the Vikings are facing a lot of elite quarterbacks in the next 6-7 weeks, and Phillip Rivers, as shaky as he can be, can put up some big numbers as well, so it'll be a good test for him. Ben, we'll let you go. Of course, the news conferences are done in different fashion because of the Zoom interviews as well, but I think we're going to check in with what the head coach, Mike Zimmer, had to say after the game today.
We couldn't get them off the field on third downs. We jumped off sides, had 3 drives extended by penalties. We gave up some big plays when we did jump off. We let him out of the pocket, and he made big plays on us. And, and then we gave up a safety and an interception right before the half. So got a lot of things to work on. Our time of possession wasn't very good, especially in the first half, but really the whole ball game. And we're gonna have to get better quick.
Hey, Mike, just in terms of the defense, how surprised were you at the showing? I know you had a lot of young players, a lot of adjusting, but how surprised were you at the defense struggling today?
Well, I think we made too many mistakes, obviously. We didn't cover them very good, and then we gave up some big plays. So probably more upset about the jumping off sides on third down, which we know Rodgers is a great hard count guy. Probably wouldn't happen if we had fans in the stands, but that's no excuse. And we let him out of the pocket, which we know that when he gets out of the pocket, bad things happen.
Mike, there's a tendency to overreact after one loss, the first loss of the season. How are you going to make sure that doesn't happen with this team?
Well, I think we got smart guys, number one, and obviously we got to play a lot better, Joe. I do think that we played. I believe we played San Francisco on Monday night. Got beat up pretty good that one night. That we either won a division or something like that. So there's a lot of football left to be played, but we got to get better quick.
Mike, what was the strangest part about coaching this game without any fans?
It really seemed like, when the fans are in the stadium and, you're not playing very good and it's quiet, that's kind of how it was today all day. And so I don't really think that had anything to do with it. It just, the energy level was just not the same.
Hey, Mike, do you think you found anything offensively later in the game, or do you think that was just a product of the score getting out of hand and them changing the way they were approaching you guys defensively?
Well, I think they approach us different defensively in the second half, yeah.
Mike, different teams.
Time for 2 more.
Mike, different teams obviously approached the national anthem differently today. I think you guys had about a half dozen guys kneel. How did that work out during the week? And were you kind of apprised of what the team would do during the anthem or what have you?
I knew that some guys were probably going to kneel. That was up to them. That's their decision. And so it is what it is.
Mike, it looked like Yannick and Jalen rotated, today with Yannick only being there for 2 weeks. Is that why he was kind of eased in as he learns the defense and gets conditioned?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're on the field for 40 minutes, it's a long season. So, find out what kind of shape we're in, what kind of game readiness we are. So, but yeah, that was the plan.
Thank you.
The words of Mike Zimmer, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. I believe, Pete Bercich, it's the first time the Vikings have given up, or Zim's given up more than 40 points in a game, certainly at home, since his first year.
Yeah, so. since his first season here. And, defensively, since 2014, You look at a number of stats. Since 2014, the Vikings defense in yards allowed, first in the NFL. Points, first in the NFL. Third down percentage, first in the NFL. Sacks, second. Red zone touchdown percentage, first in the NFL. We over the last 6 seasons, we're used to a high level on defense, and did we quite see that today? No. But was it a complete and total, utter disaster? I don't think that was. I don't think that's necessarily the case either. And I think what Zim's going to see is a lot of little things that added up to the issues at hand, and there's just a lot of little things that they're going to have to fix.
As we talked about, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense barely had their hands on the ball that first half. They were watching them from the sidelines for the most part, so it was really hard for them to get into a rhythm until, as even Zim alluded to, it was kind of garbage time at that point where the Packers defensively structured things a little differently. We look at Kirk Cousins' stats. He was 19 of 25 for 259 yards, a couple touchdowns, and the one big interception at wrong shoulder, I guess, to Adam Thielen. But overall, what I did like about Cousins a couple times was that he's talked a lot about making quick decisions and taking. Right. He ran the ball pretty well. But trying to make something happen. We know that Aaron Rodgers' strength all the time is extending plays. And he did it again today. He gets out in that pocket and he just kills you. Cousins, that's not his game, but we saw more signs of that a little bit today.
Yeah, it was a point of emphasis. I mean, one of the things that I didn't like early is on a couple direct snaps from center that he was bobbling the ball. And it kind of messed up the timing a little bit. Now, that's something, I mean, I don't care if you have a preseason game or not. I mean, that's something that needs to happen. So that throws the timing off. Yeah, Kirk got to the top of his drop, didn't see what he wanted to see, pulled the ball down, ran, extended some plays. So, yes, that's something that he mentioned and he did, and that's good. Because if you have a quarterback with some mobility, the mobility that we've seen out of Kirk has been on the bootlegs and play actions and things like that. So for him to actually extend a play on the ground, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, we just know that getting hit from behind, he fumbled the ball 10 times last year.
Yeah, he did.
So it just is what it is, and he has to be very mindful and very careful of that because you just don't want to turn the football over.
Well, Kirk had the helmet on during the game. He had the headsets on after the game, so let's check in with the Vikings quarterback and hear what he had to say.
Certainly not the way we wanted to start the season at home against a divisional opponent. We started fast with the opening drive, which was outstanding. We certainly, scored a little bit late in the game, third quarter, fourth quarter, but we have to be more consistent throughout the whole game. Certainly time of possession was tough for us in the first half. We just didn't run many plays. And when you don't run a lot of plays, it makes it hard to get things going. And we also, by staying on the field more, we can keep our defense fresh. And we weren't able to do that today. And you got to credit the Packers. They, played good football today, and don't want to take anything away from them. And so those are my thoughts, and I'll take any questions you have.
Kirk, I know you mentioned a lot of factors that were involved in it, but just kind of how frustrating to have so few pass attempts. I think you had 2 until there were like 30 seconds left to go in the first half.
Yeah, just that was the way the game flowed today, and for a variety of reasons. And it does make it tough. I think when you don't run a lot of plays, you just don't have a lot of opportunities to make something happen.
Kirk, what did you see or maybe not see on the interception?
The ball was just inside. And if the ball's outside, I think it's a completion. Once it was left inside, then the defensive back was able to make the play.
What about the safety? Did you even see that guy?
I saw him, late, obviously, but, just a tough one there.
Adam, I think Mike Zimmer was talking about Adam Thielen was open the same time Tajay Sharp was open, and you chose to go to Tajay. In 2020 hindsight, would you have gone the different way?
The safety was leaning over to Adam, and it was in the short field, and so the combination of it being the boundary and a safety cheating that way, I don't love throwing go balls where a safety's moving over the top, so that was why I went to Tajay. I'll have to watch the film to get a better feel for what made the most sense there.
Kirk, on that particular play, Coach Zimmer said Kubiak said, hey, let's go for it. Were you surprised that you guys threw long on 4th and 3 on that particular play?
No, I was ready. We talk about situational football all week long and all year long, and knew that was certainly a possibility.
Hey, Kirk, just what was it like with no fans in the stadium and just how quiet it was even right at the start, where you usually feel some sort of buzz and energy that really gets everything going? For that not to be there, what was it like to play in that environment?
It was exactly like our scrimmage we had here a few weeks ago. So it was exactly as we had prepared for. I was a little unsure if it would be different from the scrimmage, but it was the exact same. So from that standpoint, there wasn't a curveball, but obviously just different from what we're used to.
Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins have to bounce back next week against the Colts in Indianapolis. And does the road team theoretically almost have an advantage now? I mean, because you don't have to worry about the fans. Even if there are fans in the stands, a few cities continue to have them. I think Jacksonville had them today. We watched Kansas City the other night.
2 teams in the league, that's it.
That's it for the entire league? Or that's just this weekend?
Those 2 teams are
I think Dallas is going to do it next.
They might do it. But yes, it's a huge advantage. When for the teams that looked at their schedule and saw that they had some tough road games early on.
Yeah.
And, yes, it's, not having fans is better. And what's crazy is in the 60-year history of this rivalry between the Vikings and Green Bay, this is the only time that the Packers have opened here. We've opened there.
I know, it's
6
crazy.
times.
Right.
The only, and then the one year we don't have any fans.
Correct.
So, it's Vikings luck.
Let's take a look at the passing stats and the way the scatter chart. And this guy, they drafted a quarterback at some point to replace Aaron Rodgers, I guess. But he ain't going anywhere.
Right. And, you take a look at the scatter plot and you see a lot of short passes. And they kind of substituted handoffs. Maybe a run-pass type of an option when the number count was too heavy in the box. He would just throw it on the outside. I mean, they made our corners and safeties have to fit up and make tackles, and they were still getting 2 or 3 yards. And, again, the receivers caught those balls, and you got to hand it to them from an execution standpoint. Deep balls to his right side. Though that was where those passes came in. A couple of the big throws toward the end that, really to dagger the Minnesota Vikings. But, not a ton down the field.
And here, meanwhile, is the scatter chart for Kirk Cousins. A lot of this happened late in the game when they were playing catch-up, and he had more opportunities to get the ball downfield a little bit, to Adam Thielen in particular.
Yeah, he did. I mean, we had to take what was there, I think, toward the end, which is a lot of underneath and the checkdowns of the tight ends and the running backs. But, for Thielen, to get behind, Jair Alexander one time, he beat Darnell Savage on another play. He's got, he still has some juice deep. And those deep balls, when he's unharassed, were extremely accurate. It's just we've got to get some type of explosion like that early,
right?
And just be able to consistently move the chains. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, you have one great drive when you start out, and then when you get off that script, so to speak, and you have to start making different plays and different calls. Then it's just like the timing was off. It just didn't feel. Right. Like everybody was on the same page and everybody was firing on the same, on the same cylinder. And, I think the other big play is, the deep ball to Tajay Sharp. He did have a Justin Jefferson as his underneath route, and he was one-on-one with a defensive end and was open. So it's kind of like, you got the look, you throw it deep, didn't make that play. You make that one play, it's a totally different ballgame.
They were still hanging around. That's right. Let's take a look at Dalvin Cook. The Vikings rewarded him, Pete, with a big contract this weekend. The Vikings ran the ball like 49% of the time last year. This is what Gary Kubiak wants to do, but without the football in your possession, it's pretty hard to do that. But let's just talk about going forward and how important. We saw glimpses of Dalvin Cook today and why he is such an important cog, why they gave him the big contract, and why they desperately need to get that running game going with a controlled offense.
No, absolutely right. And, he's a good receiver out of the backfield now. Today he only had a couple of receptions, I believe negative yardage overall. So it wasn't as a huge of a weapon out of the backfield.
Right.
But that bootleg and the play action, the respect that Dalvin Cook gets from defenses allows guys like Thielen, it's going to allow someone like Sharp and Jefferson to do their thing in the back end. And it's off those types of play action routes and play action plays that we've seen Kirk Cousins looked so good throughout the year. He was tremendous on play action passing all throughout the season, So
let's take a look at Dalvin's touchdown. They like that zone blocking scheme, right, that the Vikings like to utilize?
Absolutely right. And it was all about cutback today. I mean, they did keep some plays front side, but you take a look at what Dalvin's seeing, and what you're going to see is Dakota Dozier go outside, kick out, and then a nice job by C.J. Ham to come up and hit the second level. And Cook he kept it front side. He could have cut that thing back. It was almost a gimme, for him to get in the end zone. And that's the part that's so frustrating was they didn't kill us in the running game. We were moving the ball. We were,
right.
But you just didn't have time to establish.
There's no rhythm
because you're constantly chasing what happens in those two big mistakes: the safety, the 3 and out, and then the interception. You can't make those mistakes back to back to back like that in a game like this and keep your defense out. And after that, it just kind of all went downhill.
And keep in mind, Alexander Madison also ran for 50 yards, exactly the same number of yards as Cook did in his six attempts, and he looks even stronger in his second year. Adam Thielen, we know, had a battle through kind of an injury-plagued season last year, and he's hell-bent on having a kickback season this year for the Vikings. And as things finally got rolling a little bit, we saw why Cousins and Thielen have such a connection, because Adam can still get it done. He's a very, very competitive guy.
That's a big thing to say, because when you're a coach and the game is kind of lopsided, you watch very closely who's still engaged,
right,
who's still working, and who have you lost, because that's a big tell. Because the guys that do that and fall off and disappear, they're going to do it to you again and again and again. And to Thielen's credit, he hung in there and never gave up. He continued at the end of a game like that, if it's the one thing for a defense, is you don't want to let anybody get behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Make them run or throw the ball 10, 12, 15 times, like the old Tampa 2. Keep everything in front of you, rally up, make a tackle, make them snap it one more time. But so for Thielen to get behind the Packers defense twice in a catch-up situation is a pretty big deal.
What makes Adam, when he's at his best and healthy, what makes him so effective as a wide receiver? As we take a look at some of his work today.
I think his technique is. I mean, he's not. Is he the fastest guy in the world? No. But when he did the stutter and go on Alexander, that's the thing. I think, if it was all just about pure speed, then anybody that runs a 4.2 in the combine would be the best receiver in the league. You've got to have more than just that speed. It's the stutter and go in him, and the change of direction, the change of speed, and his very, very good hands. He catches most everything thrown his way.
Okay, look at the speed recorded. I think Thielen's probably pretty accurate. Are you telling me that Kirk Cousins ran almost as fast as Dalvin Cook today?
Hey, fear is a motivator, man. Fear is that when you got some of these when you got some big old defensive linemen chasing you, that adrenaline kicks in. I'd call that an 18.5-mile-an-hour adrenaline run.
I think you're right. Adam Thielen caught 6 passes for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he said he got behind, and he's not going to drop many. He's got very, very sure hands.
No, absolutely right. And this is a nice fake to the inside, and then he gets outside, and Darnell Savage, maybe a bit of a miscommunication there, but just him, you ask what he does, it's selling the post and then running the 7 route on the outside. It's his route combinations, what he does, how he's able to start and stop. And, like in this situation, he didn't make a big deal of it. He knew that they were behind. He dropped the ball and said, come on, man, we got to go. We got a lot more work to do. It's his room now. He's the leader of that group, with Stephon Diggs not being around anymore. And, I think he showed some of that today, that he just didn't give up.
Well, let's hear more from Adam Thielen. He had a chance to address the media after the game as well.
Alrighty. Obviously, disappointing start to the season. It's obviously not the way we wanted to come out and play at our home stadium. But it is week 1, and we're excited to get back to work tomorrow and correct the mistakes and learn from the positives and the negatives of this game.
Hey, Adam, you guys started off so well with the score on the opening possession. Just what made it so difficult to sustain drives going forward there after that?
Well, I think number one, that's how games are. You're going to have some great drives, and you're going to have some that stall. That's just the NFL football. Now, the kicker to that is you have to learn how to come back from some of those bad drives, learn from them on the sideline, and then go make a couple plays. I think it in this league, a lot of times it comes down to just making one play, whether it be in the run game, whether it be in the pass game, making one play to kind of get some momentum going and stay on the field so we can, just kind of shift some of that momentum our way. And we did not do a very good job of that.
Adam Thielen will now have to kind of get ready, get things wrapped up again for playing the Colts in Indianapolis next Sunday. The Vikings playing the Packers, of course, here today. There was one other divisional rival game going on. Oh, my goodness. The Bears at Detroit. Detroit had a big lead. But these are the Lions we're talking about.
The Lions.
Mitchell Trubisky came back through a go-ahead touchdown pass. They were down by 17 points in the fourth quarter.
He is the comeback kid. You look surprised.
Yeah, I am surprised. And so I think a rookie running back for the Lions had the ball in his arms in the end zone that Matthew Stafford threw. The game's over. He catches it, turns around, drops it.
Right.
Vintage Lions. Bears win 27-23.
Snatch and defeat out of the jaws of victory. You're right. And but that's what kind of game that was. And obviously we didn't get a chance to see all of it, but you do get to see the highlights and at the end. And for the Lions, that's a game that they should have won. And that's the difference between a winning and a losing franchise. Man. That you think about the difference, how much different this next couple of weeks are going to look for the Lions if you'd gone out and beaten the Bears already. And have the opportunity to do it, that's tough. I mean, they're going to have their work cut out for them to come back from that.
As we look ahead to next week against the Colts in Indy, as you mentioned, Phillip Rivers now the quarterback, and the emphasis all week from the media standpoint is going to be what's Mike Zimmer going to do to kind of help fix this defense. They're not playing Aaron Rodgers. Circumstances are always different. The game flow is always different. But generally speaking, does it start with putting pressure on Rivers? Because he's a statue back there. He's not Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely. And, the Colts are going to, from what I know about them, we'll have to watch the film, but they're going to want to run the football. And Rivers, if you can get pressure on him, he's going to throw the interceptions. And this is where I kind of have to respect Rivers, is he doesn't care about stats, right? He does not care how many interceptions he throws. If they're behind and he has to throw the football, he's going to go ahead and go out there and do it, and he does it. And, see him throw 2 picks today, that makes you feel better because you got to get in that plus. I mean, you were looking at 2 of the best plus-minus teams on the field from last year right here. Now, we ended up being -1. I consider it -2 with the safety. You just can't turn the ball over, but Rivers will give you the football. My biggest concern coming out of this thing is a lack of a 4-man pass rush and getting after Rodgers. So if Rivers is going to stay in the pocket, does that mean you could take an edge a little bit more? Yeah, but they're going to have to figure out something, somehow, some way to generate pressure on a Phillip Rivers with just 4 guys.
Pete's always good to see you. Nice working with you again.
Good to be here. Yeah, great to be back. We got the band back together.
We got the band back together again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Again, the final score of the Packers 43, the Vikings 34. Reminder, you can catch more post-game stuff tonight on Fox 9 at 10:35 p.m. For Pete Bercich and Ben Leber, Mark Rosen saying thank you for watching Vikings Postgame Live from U.S. Bank Stadium, presented by Mystic Lake.